Welcome back to Switched to Linux. Well, today we want to talk a little bit about filtering content on your computer. We're talking about, in this case, blocking certain websites, blocking certain types of content. Maybe it's blocking pornography for your family and things like this. Now, there's a number of different ways to do this. Of course, on a network level, we've talked in the past about Pi-hole, which is an excellent way to do that. Basically, with Pi-hole, you develop a system. You can put in custom blocking scripts. You can put in well-known blocking scripts. You can block everything, rewrite your computer's DNS to that. That might be overkill for some people. Some people may not feel comfortable with that level of control. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of the applications we highlighted that were created for the Ubuntu Christian Edition, how those can be wider applied, and even if you're not using a distribution that those can be installed on, which would be your Debian-based distributions, how we can accomplish the same tasks without using those. Now, this has good application if you have a family computer and you want to make sure that your kids are not accessing stuff or accidentally stumbling upon stuff they shouldn't be stumbling upon. And I get this. Let me address one comment that I saw somebody make in there. They said, well, I wouldn't want any of that stuff on the internet. I'd rather my kids be able to find it and then we can talk about it. I got news for you. That's a bad approach. There is stuff that is so deep out there, you have no earthly idea. And so what we're going to talk about here is it is safer to block it all. You can still have a talk about the degeneracy of the world around you. That is still a good thing that you should absolutely do. You should talk about that there's a lot of things out there. But I think you should also be like, and I've put in places you don't accidentally stumble upon it. If you think you even need to bring it up at all. That's really, there's a lot more in that debate. We're not going to get into all of that. But what I would like to do here is I pretty much just want to talk about how you can add these filters if you want to. And I would recommend doing this on your personal computers. And you can do these in a number of ways that are difficult to get around and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and talk first about the applications that you have available. And then we'll talk about how to do these things manually. For this, I'm going to head on over to a Linux Mint Debian edition that I had floating about in my VirtualBox list. And I went ahead and I installed these two applications, and we're going to talk about them. So these were both built by Jeremy Hancock, who is the developer for the Ubuntu Christian Edition. But these are packaged as .deb files. So in theory, any Debian-based distribution is going to be able to run these. I installed DNSMinder 004 all.deb for DNSMinder, and for the HostMinder, I did the 006 all.deb for this. So basically, these two applications are going to configure your resolve.config file or your host file. And let's go ahead and have a brief look at these. Now, basically, all I did is from a Debian-based distribution, you land on these on the pages. Let me show you how I found them. So, no, not features. Stupid drop-down menus. Poor web design. I don't know why something like GitHub have such poor web design. But basically, land on his page. He has the DNSMinder. He has the HostMinder. This one, we're going to look at the HostMinder here. And then from here, I went to the deb and then the jammy, and then I installed here. Now, of course, these are put together, the Focal and the jammy. These refer to the Ubuntu distributions, but they are working on Linux Mint Debian Edition here, as I just tested. At least the DNSMinder is. In fact, if I install the DNSMinder and do not activate it, it will break the internet on your system, because that's kind of what it's designed to do. But anyway, let's go ahead and look at these guys here. So you pull up the DNSMinder, and you have it's telling me status off, although it is actually on. I have no idea why. Again, we're not using it in the implemented system, which is why you might want to do these things manually. And I'm going to show you how to do them manually. All right, so we'll go ahead and click OK, and then you choose your provider. And we have clean browsing, we have OpenDNS Family Shield, and we have 1111 for families. Now, I want to look up 1111 for families because that's actually, I've used 1111 in the past for testing. So this is from Cloudflare, and they have basically a few different options that we have in mind. So this was released about 2 years ago, and basically Cloudflare processes a lot of DNS requests. They are the second behind Google. And what these guys did is some people have been asking to say, hey, can you filter with this stuff? Now, how does this work? Well, let me explain it. When you are using your DNS as your filter, as your filter provider, the DNS system itself is blocking certain sites on its level, and it is allowing certain sites on its level. This is the fundamental reason why I do not like the DNS over HTTPS implementation inside of apps and operating systems and web browsers and things like this, because it gets around all of your system level controls. And you're relying on that company to block what you want or not block what you want. And they rarely are going to block stuff that's not prudent for them to block. But after enough people asked for it, Cloudflare did release they have the version 1111, which is basically a fast alternative DNS that you can use as an alternative to Google DNS or your ISP's DNS or whatever else. This doesn't filter anything per se. They have a malicious content blocker, which anything that is known malicious will be blocked. So that's definitely one to run. And then they have another one for families, which will block what some people would consider bad websites. And so having a look at what their blog post says, they kind of get into it. They talked about there's two more flavors. 1112 blocks malware. 1113 blocks malware and adult content. And so you can set these up by doing, for your DNS, you can set this up by 111.2, 100.2, or for the adult 1113, 1003 malware, then these are IVP6 configurations. Okay, so what this guy is going to do is all it does is it edits the Etsy resolve.config. So let's go ahead and show you what that looks like. So pulling up a terminal here, we're going to do a sudo and nano to get a text editor, and then we're going to do Etsy and resolve.config. So enter your super secret password, and now this is where your filter is. So what these are going to do is these are going to override your DNS settings on the operating system level. So every application, every program, every web browser is going to basically respect this. Now, what the program does is it adds these top two lines here. Name server 1113 and 1003. These are telling it to use these are using the family configuration files. So you can go ahead and set these manually inside of your system, and a person would need to have administrative access to change this so you can effectively block your main user accounts, i.e. your children accounts, out of being able to change these and getting around your filters. Is it still possible to get around? Absolutely, but I'm not going to tell you how to do that. All right. We have our name server, this one here, the name server and the search local domain. These are set up by the operating system, and this 10.023, that's configured that way because we are in a virtual machine. Now you can actually temporarily override a lot of these options, and if I were to be making these changes, I would rarely edit the Etsy resolve.config file. What I would actually do, which can accomplish basically the same thing, is pull up your network settings. Now, this is going to be dependent on your individual desktop environment. This is going to be in a different place in a different settings. Here on Cinnamon, pull up your connection, select whichever connection it is. In this case, we're looking at wired. You can see your default root and your default DNS. Now, I did double check this before we started. It is actually using whatever's in the resolve config will override this. So if you do not change your resolve config, you can override that here. Click on your gear setting, go down to IVP4, and then you can go ahead and type those settings in here. You need both of them. Okay, like this. And then you're going to toggle this guy, the automatic off, hit apply, and then you need to turn off and turn back on your setting. And when you turn off and turn back on your setting, when it reconnects, then it's going to reconnect with the proper settings. And it's not reconnecting for some reason, and that might be because I've tweaked the system well far beyond tweaking at this point in time without testing. So I would not edit both the Etsy Resolve and your DNSMinder at the same time. I would definitely pick one over the other. So in order to get this guy resolved, I'm actually just going to go ahead and run through this guy here. So the application itself is going to work well. So yes, we're sure. I don't know why it keeps hiding it behind that. It does. So go ahead and set that up. Now it's going to edit the resolve config, removing the previous entries, adding the new entries, and then it's going to restart the network. And then hopefully when it resets the network, it will kick our network back on. It's still telling us it's not. There we are. Now we're back on our network. So there we are. That was just a weird setting. You can see here the DNS settings are there because of what we have done. You only get that weird thing if you have multiple things fighting over this at the same time. So use one option or the other. Manually edit the resolve config, use the DNSMinder, or edit it here in your configuration. Don't do all three like I'm doing in this video here. But that is one way of utilizing DNS to manage your block lists. I'm not in huge favor of this. And the reason I'm not is because I'm relying on the external DNS source in order to do this. So I prefer personally to use the host file. Now on my own personal network here in the van, all of my network is managed by a master host file on my custom router. So I have this global to everything on my system, and I have the ability to break out of it utilizing DNS settings and things like that should I need to. However, that being said, the host file is the way I like to do it. And so we're going to look at the host file options next. So we've already looked at the DNSMinder. This one is the HostMinder. What the HostMinder is going to do is this is going to make changes to your hosts file on your computer, which overrides DNS. So this runs in a cascade type event. Your host file is going to take priority over whatever's in the DNS. Now, the reason DNS over HTTPS violates the host file is because it bypasses what is in that host file. Your standard operating system level DNS does not do that. So let's go ahead and have a look at the HostMinder here. So if we pull up our HostMinder application, we can go ahead and turn it on. And then as we do this, it's going to make changes to the Etsy hosts file. Now, before we go ahead and run this, let me show you what that file looks like. So we're going to do sudo nano Etsy hosts. Enter your super secret password, and this is all of the settings that are inside of here. So these are basically all just settings to allow your system to function. We're going to exit out of there. Now, when we come in over here, we can block ads and bad stuff on the internet, ads plus bad stuff on the internet gambling, ads bad stuff on the internet social, and ads bad stuff on the internet social and fake news. Now, I commented in my video on Ubuntu Christian, what is fake news? And Jeremy actually responded back to me. And if you go to the HostMinder site, he is using the Stephen Black hosts block list. So you can actually come down here and see what that is. So what fake news actually means in this instance, it's not like a definition, whose definition of fake news. It's news sites that are trying to pretend to be something else. So if I can find just the fake news and open up the raw file, you can see what it's doing is it's grabbing things that are trying to be, there's a lot more in this one. The one I found earlier was a little bit easier to see. For example, there was like a fake ABC. So abc.co.biz. That's not really ABC. There was data.cnn. Okay, that one might actually be legit CNN. Hey, I'm blocking CNN as fake news. I'm all right with that. This is a different list than I looked at when I first saw it. So basically, it's sites that are attempting to mimic what would be considered otherwise legit sites, whether we like them or don't like them, whatever that happens to be. So you can go ahead and choose what they are. Let's have a look at the social. Okay, that's why, because I want to come down here. There was a list of just the ones in the fake news sites. I thought it was down here, but maybe it's not. Let's grab the social, see what that's blocking. And let's see if it is blocking Facebook. So it is blocking some Facebook stuff. I don't think it's blocking everything Facebook, but maybe it is. So it's blocking a lot of Facebook stuff. Let's do facebook.com. So it's blocking some Facebook stuff. I'm not sure if it's blocking the entirety of it. You'd have to lift through to see what it is. But regardless, let's head back on over to here. Let's say, sure, we're going to go ahead and set our max. So all this is going to do is make a change to the host file. And hit the yes, we're sure. Now what it's going to do is it's going to download the file. It's going to make the change to your host file. We need to make our setting changes in order to push it. Backs up the current host file and setting up the new host file. So it is saving a backup. Enabling Google Safe Search, adding update. So the autocron, my guess is what that's going to do is that's going to automatically update it, which is an advantage of using this application instead of doing it manually. So now you can see that it has been edited with Stephen Black's files, and there are now a ton of entries in your host file. So this is going to block things on your network. Now, if I were to doing this manually and I want to whitelist something, I'd search through there and I would just edit the entry out. Let me just show you what I mean by that. So for example, if I go Control W and I want to add like facebook.com, I can go in here, and if I wanted to, I can enable these sites just by putting a hash in front of them, save the list, and we are good. So that is what this is doing. If you want to edit the allow list, we can easily do that just by hitting the allow list. Of course, I double click through that too quickly. Let me go ahead and do that again. So we seem to have a problem on this application. Again, that might just be the, it might just be if, let's see, allow list only affects list blocked by HostMinder, save and apply list. It's not allowing me to save it. I think that might be because, again, this is not the application that this program is designed for. This is really designed to be used on Ubuntu. And so, again, for these, I would do this manually. So how would I do this manually? All right, so manually configuring your host file. So what I did is I turned off HostMinder. So we'll go ahead and get rid of HostMinder, and that allowed me to restore my host file back to its original configuration. Now, the one thing we want to do is we want to make sure that whatever happens, this stuff stays at the top. Now, Jeremy Black's list should have it all up in the top. We're just going to double check it. And rather than grab the largest list I can find, I'm going to grab the smallest list I can find, because this will take a while to copy and paste in a terminal. They're all about the same size, but let's go with this one because it's just 114,000. So I'd click this link here. And again, let's double check that this list here matches this list over here. Let me just look through it real quick, and it should match just fine. As long as it does, I can copy and paste it. Otherwise, I'm going to preserve this, and it is. So we're going to copy this, and we're just going to overwrite what's in the host file with that. Now, making a backup of the host file would be a good, appropriate thing to do. So since I'm in a terminal, I'm going to do Shift, Control, and V to paste. And when you're pasting this much content into a terminal, it will take a period of time. So I'm going to go ahead and let it go. And then once it's done, we'll do our next step. Okay, so it is done. And you can kind of see what's going on here. It's all in. Oh, look at that. TikTok is blocked. Sweet. There's Clubhouse. All right, so now that's done, we're going to hit Control X, save the file. And now that once we've done that, now all those things will be blocked. So if I go with TikTok, I might need to reset my browser for this. Okay, I did not. So there you go. TikTok no longer is accessible on my system because it is in my actual block file. So that is how you can make the adjustments. If you're running an Ubuntu-based distribution, you can give a try to the HostMinder and DNSMinder. I'll have those linked down below. But you can always do this by manually editing the resolve.config and the hosts file on your computer. So those are your options. You can use these to block any site that you want to block. You can use it to block certain contents. You can use these big services in order to manually put them in or automatically put them in. You could run cron jobs that will automatically re-upload those. So there's a lot of factors you can do here, and this will make your computer safer to make sure that your kids and other family members, or maybe yourself, doesn't stumble upon bad places on the internet quite accidentally. Hopefully this helped. Let me know in the comments down below, and we will see you next time. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.